So let's get started, man. Let's not delay
Yeah,
further.
yeah,
Um, let's start. Well, let's start with kind of what's your why we started, why we're on this journey as far as dealing with our emotions and finance. Let's just kind of talk about that, and then we'll get into how to deal with
yeah.
stresses.
Okay, so this My Mind, My Money project started from experiences and challenges I was witnessing with clients,
Hmm.
and conversations that will be taking place across board regarding finances and some of the ways that money would um, heighten people's emotions and the anxieties that we experience, or the not having enough money, or having enough money but spending a lot of it, and even logging into their bank accounts, they will create a level of anxiety,
Hmm.
discomfort, and just memories that will pop up, that I felt would be good to discuss, the impact that how we grow up, our experiences with money, what we witnessed our parents do, our grandparents, and the pressures that are coming from the outside in society as to how money needs to be used, how we're supposed to feel about it, how you're supposed to give up your life basically for it, whether you're happy or not. I felt that this would be a good project to have, and to be able to offer it to the community for free. So that's why we felt, IG Live will be the first step, and then the other webinars
Absolutely.
to be able to offer them for free on Zoom. People can log in, and it can be more of an intimate setting where we can answer questions and do exercises and experiments and stuff like that. So, and I'm just glad that you're here with me to be
Yeah.
able to do this.
Yeah.
We're all about sharing information, as much information as possible.
Absolutely. And in these times, and you're absolutely right, like no matter where we're at financially, we still carry those family lineage thoughts, emotions, and practices with us, whether we are,
Yeah,
you know, in the projects and we've made it out of the projects and now we have our own family and houses and stuff.
yeah,
The thought in our mind is always there. So we need to, just learn effective techniques to deal with them
yeah,
while continuing to grow with our knowledge. So I
yeah.
totally.
It kind of goes the same way recipes gets passed down and traditions get passed down. The same thing happens with how we manage money and how we feel about money. Even right now, right? People don't really get to touch money.
Right.
Like this new generation doesn't really need to touch it. They just use a card, or now they use their phones.
Absolutely.
So it's a different relationship that comes with it, but it's still a level of
Hmm.
anxiety, underlying anxiety that takes place with it, because their parents didn't do that. Their parents were, technically our generation, or
Right.
we actually got to touch money more often.
Absolutely. That's very, very insightful. Like we're in a generation where we need to touch it, but also we can easily use our phone or whatever we need to and keep it going.
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Yeah, there's a disconnect, an emotional disconnection when you're using your phone.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? It's like, oh, it's there, and then when you got to pay those bills, then it becomes a completely different story and a different level of stress that shows up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree. So let's talk about, this is tax season. And there's always stress, whether you're making a lot of money or you're not making money on either spectrum of it. There's always a stress when you have to deal with taxes. What's your thought on, or just approaching that process and approaching that?
Um, for what I've witnessed, and I can share a little bit about what I experienced as well, especially, during this time, end up when you're a business owner, you end up having to pay a lot of
Hmm.
money, even if you've done some estimate payments, or I think right now I've even down like, okay, yes, I paid enough. It's kind of like we first got to pay the government before we pay ourselves. Although it feels that way, we shouldn't be doing that, but it still is a level of like, why do I have to go through this process? That's why people delay it to the end. It's very challenging to keep track of it. If you are a business owner, if you are an employee, they kind of do that work for you, but
Right.
still, tax season becomes very stressful for people, and a disconnect takes place. So
Hmm.
a lot of people end up like, I'm going to spend all my money, that I'm getting back to buy whatever. Others, I'm going to pay all my bills off, while other people are just in a state of feeling paralyzed because of how much money they will have to pay back. Or the money that they thought they will be getting back, they don't really get that money back, and they had already allotted that money to something.
Absolutely.
So it's the heightened level of emotions that show up can have there's a heightened level of different emotions that show up, from anxiety, depression, grief, a feeling of not enough, like there's a scarcity. I'm not making enough. I need to get more, get another job, or stop doing this, stop doing that. But then usually that only stops for like a month, and then people go right back into the same patterns of behavior.
Right.
So the consistency aspect of it is basically the biggest challenge for the majority of people. So how we spend our money and the feelings that come along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So the feelings begin to get in the way of our ability to be consistent with it.
Absolutely. And also, just on my end, in regards to the financial end, those feelings often have a negative impact on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to build, if you're trying to build your real estate portfolio, if you're trying to build like some savings, oftentimes, I just run into clients who want to write off more, but maybe can't, or to it thinking I don't have to write off any. I don't have to write off a lot because, I got property, I have children.
Yeah.
And when they get to the process, not having a clear mind and a clear thought process about it, they end up owing more than they think they did, or just owing they didn't even know they were going to owe. And so, again, on my end, it just creates the thought pattern of how their family dealt with money, and how if they ignored it, or if they were on top of it, whatever it is, the thought pattern often, more often than not, causes more financial stress moving forward, or causes some discomfort in how they go about it. And where I come in is now I have to correct some of that past behavior and give them a blueprint for how to go about it moving forward. And the biggest thing that I've noticed is that people think that there's only one way to go about it, and usually it's from this is how my mom did it, or this is how my cousin did it, or my whomever aunt told me to do it that way. And people don't understand that your circumstances are not the same as theirs. So you may have to go about it a different way. I know it may have been successful for them. That doesn't mean it's going to be successful for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you shared that, one of the things I do discuss with my clients, although we're not talking about money, but money does come up in a lot of therapy sessions, is take a course on just basics of IRS, right? Mm-hmm. Basics of taxes. At least there is a level of understanding, because once you begin to understand just a little bit about it, it does decrease the levels of anxiety being experienced. Mm-hmm. It's more of like, it's that yucky feeling that people experience when it comes to money. Right. Whether it is you're giving money to somebody, receiving money, paying bills. When you see your check at the end of the 2 weeks, if you get paid on a bi-weekly basis or a monthly basis, that sensation is what I work with clients on, right? Mm-hmm. And that sensation actually opens them up into a series of other things, other memories, childhood memories, growing up, what they witnessed with their parents, the level of anxiety in the home, how the mood in the home would change when bills were due, or what would happen when they go to the supermarket and not be able to afford certain things. Also the stresses that will show up from is the light bill being paid, heat being paid, water, TV. It's an array of things that bring up different emotions for people. Along with, a lot of times, it's like when bills were due, and they would be like, "Oh, don't open that bill. Let's go shopping." Right? So comfort, that will bring them a level of comfort but then not noticing that that gets passed on to their children. And then this is where we end up with so many people having such huge credit card debt and not knowing how to begin to tackle it because of the behaviors they've been accustomed to doing.
You made me think about two things. One is I liken it to when you first learn how to ride a bike, right? You may have someone teaching you. They may be holding the seat for you. They may be telling you how to do it, but
Mm-hmm.
your own anxieties and fears will kick in until you actually learn how to do it. Like
Yeah.
a couple times you're like, I don't want to do it. I remember teaching my son, and even though I was holding the bike, he still was scared to pedal and learn how to balance itself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that financial process is. The other thing it reminds me of is every time around tax season, I find that people get excited about the tax money that they're about to receive, and it's generational. Like you start naming what you're gonna buy and what you're gonna do with that money, and it's a list of things, right? You have probably $1 million of things that you want to do with it. And realistically, you're probably only getting about a couple of $1,000, but you think you're out there living a life,
Yeah.
and that's that behavior that we're talking about.
Yeah. I think even with that, forgetting that the money you're getting back is actually the money they've already used.
Right.
Right.
You're not getting anything back.
You're
It's
not
your
really,
money.
yeah, it's your money after they've already invested in it.
Mhm.
Right. I don't know much about that whole process because even one of the things that I learned with time was I don't want to get any money back from the government at
Mhm.
all. I want to
Mhm.
be able to keep my money so that way I can invest it in whatever way I want. So it's working with the accountant, your tax preparer, to set you up in a manner where you're not getting any money back from them.
Right.
That way it's evened out. But even that process, because even having an understanding of, okay, growing up, money was scarce,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Depending on your family dynamics, finances, blah, 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 blah. So if you're coming from a space that there was not a lot of money coming into the household because let's say it was a single parent household, meaning single income,
Right.
what does that feel like and what does that look like now that you're trying to either take care of yourself or take care of family or have created new habits like people ordering Uber Eats and DoorDash? Those are huge bills that people are experiencing in addition to the food shopping that they do.
Right.
So the way it becomes a detriment to our health is first is if we have a bad relationship with money
Mhm.
or we have bad experiences with money, it begins to create mental health issues, right? And with those stresses that come with mental health, the symptoms that begin to show up because of it, then those begin to turn into somatic symptoms, which is physical symptoms begin start getting experienced
Mhm. Mhm.
from elevated heart rate, body temperature changes, um, pains like shoulder pains, neck pain, lower back pain, belly aches, even your toes and your knees begin to cause, depending on where you hold the stress
Right.
in your body, and the ruminating thoughts that begin to take place where people be thinking, I am processing how I'm going to do this. So like, no, actually, you're just thinking about the same thing over and over and over again, which then begins to create all these other symptoms.
Right.
Right. So a lot of times, I don't think people have an understanding that whether it's money, key one, right? Employment,
Mhm.
relationships, and our health is all connected
Yes.
to how we're present on a day-to-day basis, not only with ourselves, but in our relationships and how we present to the world. So although this may feel like just because of finances, yes, our finances impact every aspect of our lives, especially the society in which we live in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because I was listening to someone talk. I do like every morning I do like my motivational, I listen to some motivational stuff. And the person said that it's not your body affecting your mind, it's actually your mind affecting your body. But most people think it's their body that leads the process. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not your body, it's your mind creating that stress, creating that tension, creating that feeling of either of anger, satisfaction, whatever it is. It's your mind based on what I guess it would it be in your opinion, would it be your mind creating that based on its experiences in the past as a child, as an adult or whatever have you? How does that work on your end?
So the way it gets triggered first is yes, because it's our brain, right? So our brain, our central nervous system, all of that.
Hmm.
We feel, we notice it here first. So your body, the first level is here. You first feel it, and then it's just like automatic. What we usually try to have is people, you pause. You felt it, let us pause. Let us allow your brain to just take a breather and be able to take in what's coming. Um, it is usually based on lived
Hmm.
experiences. If you grew up in a household where there was scarcity or where there was abundance, both can be extremes. And then the person begins to respond from what they witnessed.
Right.
If we have enough privilege to learn, then we begin to adjust with time, only if we are emotionally balanced and mentally balanced,
Okay.
right? That is what allows a change to take place because you've been intentional about how I want to manage my finances. So yes, I grew up in a space of abundance, but that was my
Hmm.
parents, right? They
Hmm.
were able to do that. Now, did they teach me how to manage my funds? Did they teach me how to invest? Did they teach me how when I have this is some of the feelings I may experience, and then these are the things that I can do with it? Or did I come from a space of scarcity? And did they just teach me to try, since what the experience that took place there was like of not having enough, now by hoarding,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So it's some people that begin to just hoard and hoard and hoard. And it doesn't mean that they're solely hoarding money. They also can begin to hoard things that they did not
Right.
have growing up,
Right.
right? Which can also happen when you come from a space of abundance. I mean, more, 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 more,
Hmm.
more, right? So when we look at it with it's at each end, we can still get similar
Right.
results because emotionally and mentally because of how extreme they can become.
Absolutely. I often see that in when I'm working with my first time home buyers.
Uh-huh.
And two things. Anytime you're doing something for the first time, there's gonna be a level of nervousness, right? But if you're first generation, there's an extreme level, and almost to the point where I'm hand holding and I'm walking them through the process step by step by step by step. And
Yeah.
also, there's conflict because their family may be telling them something contradictory to what they're trying to accomplish, right? And
Yeah.
then that becomes a constant battle. What I normally do is because they'll always refer back to the person that's giving them the information. So I invite that person into the conversation
Oh, good.
to help everyone's comfort zone and confidence and because if I'm just talking to the person that I'm dealing with and then they're going back to talking to their comfort zone because essentially that's their comfort zone, their trusted resource. It's
Yep.
a constant cycle, right?
Yeah.
But on the other end of the spectrum is when I'm dealing with a first time home buyer whose maybe parents own the home and now their parents are helping them through the process. It's a little bit easier if the parent is in an open forum and understanding that although this is my process, my child's process might not be the exact same, it'll be similar. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I still invite the parents. I had a client a couple months ago. I invited her parents in on the initial consultation because I wanted them to feel comfort in knowing that, a lot of times is does that person know what they're doing? If I'm sitting across from you talking to you and I hit a couple points and they start to remember, yeah, I remember that. That's what I did on my first home 30 years ago. Yes. There's again a level of comfort that I'm creating, but I don't think I can ever skip that step. And it's in a way it's sort of like a counseling session
Yeah.
because I have to give
It
them
sounds like coordinating. You're coordinating care
yes,
from a financial,
coordinating their care exactly,
right?
exactly.
We're bringing in the
Hmm.
family, and the family will allow you to be able to provide the support that the person needs.
Yes. It's a
That's really
family counseling.
what it comes down to, right? So you're educating the person, educating the family, and becoming part of the support and network that the person can
Absolutely.
have, right? So then that way, whatever the person you're working with, if they're not able to remember everything, at least the family members that will actually remember when he said this and this and this and this, and that is what begins to create a shift.
Yes.
So that was actually part of the goal for this project, right? To be able to assist people in creating a shift in their feelings regarding finances and how they can begin to take those action steps. Because a lot of times, the majority of the information does not really go into the emotional and mental health stresses that it will cause.
Right.
Right. So one thing that also comes with this is the sense of power when it comes to money. If you have money, then you have power, right? That belief. The sense of the opportunities that show up if you have money. And it has to be a certain amount of money that can bring in those opportunities, right? Yes. But we're not really discussed to what detriment. Right? What do we end up losing when we solely have those views as it relates to money? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's spot on, and here's why. Again, just relating it to my experience, it's similar to someone having an idea of their dream home, right? This is their first home and their dream home, and they want this. They have a list of things that they absolutely have to have, and the reality is, at some point, you're gonna have to kind of negotiate with yourself what's absolutely important, especially in going into your first home. If you're a young couple, you're single, what you need now is not going to be what you need 10, 15, 20 years from now. So in your respect of what I'm going into, I need to negotiate with myself. What's important right now? How do I negotiate that with myself and be okay with knowing that this is now? There may be room for growth going forward. And I think that some people don't know how to give themselves that room to grow moving forward on my end. A lot of times.
That's easier said than done.
It is. It absolutely is. Because you have a thought in your mind. Maybe when I was a child, this is what my grandmother's house looked like. This is what my mom always wanted. So it definitely isn't easy. And what happens is you end up spinning your wheels and not either getting anything or buying something and being totally dissatisfied with what you bought, even though that house may be a good house.
Yeah. And when you shared that, one of the things that came up for me was when I bought my first property, and everybody else's fears towards what I would be experiencing, because I was so young then, right? It's like, well, how are you going to pay your mortgage? And how is that going to look? And who's going to come visit you? And all these things that were coming at me. And one of the things that I learned was, just because that is their fears does not mean I got to carry theirs. Right. Along with, and that happens also in family networks, right? If you grew up in a household and you felt this, which was your dream as a kid, I'm going to buy a home for my parents, right? Or I'm going to have this huge home, blah, 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 blah. Or my bank account is going to do this. Those images continue, they get ingrained in people's head. It's kind of like that picture, the perfect picture. Right. And that is what people are striving for, that perfect picture. And trying to have people undo that and have them understand that, yes, that was an image that was created when you were like 10.
Right.
Or it was an image that was created when you were 20. And it was an image you created when you were 30. Think about it, being created, not in reality. Yes. Right? So when we get stuck trying to achieve that picture, it begins to impact everything else. Right? Because whatever you do, if it does not look like the image, if it does not feel the way you imagine it's supposed to feel, it begins to create high levels of stress that then you really can't function. Versus, we are in a different playing field right now.
Right.
And what you were able to get 10 years ago, you really can't really get now unless it's multiple incomes or you make a lot of money, enough
Money.
money, right, to be
Right.
able to have you be comfortable enough.
Right.
So it's from what you shared, the first thought that came to me, like, how do we get people to kind of undo that perfect
Mhm.
image they created
Mhm.
and be okay and be welcoming of it can be
It can be
changed.
changed.
We can adjust it to the realities of where you're at now.
Mhm.
We can adjust it to, I know you wanted to live in this space. And I know you were trying to save enough money for this, but at the pace that inflation is going, at the pace that just our society norms are going, that's no longer a
Right.
reality, right? But this can be a reality, which can be just as equal to that.
Mhm.
But it doesn't feel right. She's like, it doesn't feel right. I want it to look this way. Like, yes, I understand you want it to look this way. But as you're wanting to fit into the image, how is this impacting your mental health?
Right.
Right? You're not able to sleep. You're feeling like you need to do extra and overcompensate in the workplace.
Mhm.
You work on a salary. What are we doing?
Right.
Right? You're not working for the bonus. And even when people are working for the bonus, it's like, do you understand that you do need
Right.
sleep? You need
Needs
to be able to have a level of decreased stress in order for your brain to think clearer. Working harder does not mean you're going to be getting more.
Exactly.
So being able to get that, I think getting past that perfect image is one of the biggest challenges because it comes with so many symptoms that it takes away from their ability of what you can actually achieve in the
Right.
present. So as a finance person, what do? Because you don't have a therapist in the room with you.
Right.
So what do you actually do when the client is stuck in an image? How do you begin to try to sift it through as you're also trying to get past their emotions or help them get through their emotions
Right.
they're experiencing?
Right. So oftentimes what I do is I go back to a list. I go, what are your must-haves? Right? And they give me a list of what they must have, whether it be a walk-in closet. I must have 3 bedrooms. I must have, a garage. I must have a basement. I go through that list. Then, because and on my end, I still need to know how much house they want to buy. There has to be a number. So after I go through the must-have list, I go through the negotiator list. What are the things that's in your dream, but you may not be able to get to, right? And then they start talking about maybe I want a she cave in the background, or maybe I want all of this, 12,
And I
12
need it to look like
right,
HGTV.
right, 12-inch uh, ceilings and all this other stuff, bay windows, and I go, listen, for what you qualify for, here's where you're at, and that's okay. But I'm here for the long run. So this is our first home. Let's maybe think about this on the second home, right? And that gives them some thought of, all right, this is what I qualify for. I know I can't have the she cave and the bay windows that open up to the sea and all this other stuff, but at least I have a baseline to start with, and I can possibly move into that on the next go around. That way it takes the pressure off. I got to have all of this now, but all of that now is $1 million. You may only qualify for 500,
Or
right,
200.
or 200. So let's be mindful of where we're at, giving ourselves room to grow to where we want to be.
So what do you do as a finance person when somebody, they're making minimum wage,
Mm-hmm.
they have this image as to what they want their life to look like. So, okay, the house is already, you're telling me about the house, but what happens when this is my present rent?
Right.
This is how much money I have coming in. I am on my second job and I'm still not making enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I am feeling this level of anxiety because I don't know what else to do because the rent continues to go
Right.
up. And I don't have enough money coming in.
So I
So what
talk
do you
about
do with
yeah,
that?
I talk about it in 2 ways. I go first, you're right, rent goes up, but on the other hand of it, a mortgage eventually goes down, right? So you have to think about that. Where's your rent at now? What's your mortgage? What's your threshold of mortgage that you can pay, right? And I pull up articles where they're showing that rent is going up, 5, 10%, whatever it is, depending on where you live. But then I show them the chart of maturation of a mortgage, of how traditionally, your mortgage is going to go down, right? So there may be some other payments in there that go up, but the overall mortgage is going to go down. The other thing I do is I make sure that they understand that, yes, you may not be able to buy a home now, but if you get that condo in an area where appreciation of the value of the condo is going up consistently, in 5 or 10 years, you may have bought it for 200 now, but it's going to be worth 350 in another 5 to 10 years, right?
Is that realistic for what people are experiencing now, where some places are actually where people that worked in finance, they may have been making more money then than they are now, right? When they adjusted all those bonuses and things of that nature. So what do you do with somebody that is not eligible for the $200,000?
If they're not eligible,
They're not making
they're not
enough money.
making enough money to buy anything,
Mhm.
then I say, all right, if you have one job, let's talk about getting another job for additional income if you can. All right. Or maybe what's been going on now is two ways you can go about it. You can maybe, if you still want a one family, maybe you get a co-signer. But there's been a trend, and it's still going on, where there'll be like two friends that buy a two family together, and they go into it as a partnership, knowing that
Okay.
we're gonna get this together. At some point, one or both of us are gonna want to branch out and get our own. Now, once we're ready to do that, we can either take the equity and branch out off on our own, or buy out another person. Sell them whatever their 50% of the home, so they can go buy their own. There's many ways to approach it, but the best thing I do is give them options,
Mhm.
right? You can either stay renting, get another job, use that job to save up more money, or you can go into a co-signer where they can help with their income to get you something, knowing that maybe at some point they're going to want to get out of it, which we can, that can happen. Or you go into like a partnership where you're buying maybe a two family or even a one family with one person. You're both going to live in it, cohabitate, if you will, with the idea of a plan going forward that in 5 or 10 years we're going to branch out on our own. And it's done in a lot of different cultures. A lot of different cultures do that, where the family buys one home. They live there as a group. Maybe it's 5 to 10 people there, 3 generations of family. They take the equity out that home. They buy for the next person that's ready. They put that equity towards their down payment. Now that family has two homes, and they continue to build from there. And I think that's a good way to go about it.
Okay, that was good, because one of the things as you shared it, the first thing I got was like, you have to be able to trust somebody enough to go into a partnership of, being able to live together.
Yes.
Right, or being able to buy and become partners in something. It has to be somebody that kind of aligns or complements your values and the goals that you have, but there also has to be a very big level of trust within oneself to be able to make the decision to like, okay, I want to be able to do this with this other person. It sounds like very doable. And then from the mental health perspective and the relationship aspect of it, is like, that requires a good level of trust in our ability to choose who we want to be able to do that with, the same way we choose who we want to be in a intimate relationship with, right? Who we invite into our world, who we choose to spend quality time with, right? Because there's a difference between the people you party with, the people you talk about work and profession with, and then the people you talk about more intimate things that are closer to you.
Absolutely.
So you shared that, and it brought up a whole all these
anxiety,
like alarms going on, like, oh my goodness. So now we're getting into the space of first, how growing up, how was it, or what were the beliefs about friends,
right,
and
absolutely,
partnerships, right, and people outside of the home, right? It depends on the culture. It depends what was happening in that home. In my home, friends were like having change in your pocket.
Yes.
Right. And then I had to grow out of that with, as I worked, I did my own mental health journey. becoming more mindful, aware, practicing, allowed me to be able to have a very different
Right.
relationship with the people that was around me. I had a best friend, like with my best friend at 25 years old.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like growing up in a space where like you can't trust nobody,
Right.
right? Because blah blah blah. If you want to lose a friendship, lend them money. Right? That is it's kind of like us. So growing up in a
Yeah.
space where if you want to lose a friendship, lend them money.
Hmm.
Or if you have money to give, then okay.
Right.
But don't expect
Don't
to get it
expect
back.
that. Right. Absolutely.
Right? So I think that can be very common in and hopefully I'm wrong in this, but it feels like it's very, very common in our culture
Hmm.
to have that belief, right? And it's a lot of it is because our ability to trust ourselves, it becomes a big challenge
Hmm.
because we're kind of like, I don't know, I'm not sure, right? And along with the scarcity mindset.
Right.
But what you shared also reminded me of when people come into this country.
Yeah.
I know in the Latino culture, if coming from a different country,
Hmm.
they can come with that
Right.
community mindset because that's a community will be able to do this.
Exactly.
But from an American lens,
Yes.
that is not.
It's
That's
different.
kind of like frowned upon. You're supposed to have your own. It's
Have your-
supposed to just be
ab-
you, the one that does
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. Which creates more generational stress. It creates more anxiety
Yeah.
of, especially depending on where you live. And, if you live in New York, it's hard to have your own and be able to survive on one income
Yeah.
or just one job. It's extremely hard. Generally, people either have two jobs or there's two incomes. The one
Hmm.
thriving. I often take applications where there's one income, right? And
Mm.
they can
Hmm.
they can only afford maybe 2 or 300,000, and they want a house in New York. That's impossible to deal with, right? But
Yeah.
going back to what you said is, in their mind, I should be able to have my own. If I can survive in New York, I can survive anywhere.
That mindset.
It
Yeah.
sounds good in theory. The song is great. The song is a great song, but the reality is a different reality, and we have
I
to
was
make
listening.
ourselves great.
Yeah. I was listening to this podcast, and one of the things that stands out for me was the scientist sharing,
Hmm.
like growing up in the jungles of New York and blah blah blah. Like, well, you know what? A jungle is self-sufficient,
Yes.
and if we were to able to look at it from that space, we work as a community. A jungle, the trees communicate, right? You have the birds, the bees, the elephant, the monkeys. Everything
Works.
works together and has a
The
purpose.
ecosystem is working together.
Is a ecosystem that is
Hmm.
balanced, right? There's homeostasis
Yep.
in that. Um, the way we're looking at it, it's complete, it's polar opposite
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And we talk about community, but building community is something that, once again, requires a level of trust within
Hmm.
oneself, and it's a necessity to be able to have good esteem or have people around you that are able to support your
Yes.
esteem.
Yes.
It requires community,
Yes.
and we are in space that does not really, they support the talk about it,
Yes. It
but they
sounds
don't
good.
really,
It takes the
yes, but they don't really
community.
support.
Yeah.
Yes.
All that. It sounds good, but and I think we have to actually recreate what it looks like. Recreate the norms. The norms again under the American. The norm is at 21, the child has to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just talking about this with an associate of mine, and recreating that narrative that I don't think I'm gonna require my son to leave the nest at 21. I'm gonna give him maybe till late 20s till he's stable in his career. He kind of knows who
His
he is.
brain is fully completed,
Exactly.
is fully formed.
Exactly. I think I'm gonna recreate the narrative and recreate what that looks like. Not that my parents were wrong, but that's just what they were taught. But me having the thought process and knowing what that looks like and how it could be better, my
Yeah.
my 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 ideas to recreate what that looks like. So you're absolutely right.
Yes, I think that that would be a very healthy for him. But in addition to it, it allows them to be able to see this is what community can look like. This is what family
Yeah.
can look like. This is how support us. So it is good to have friends. It is good to build a community. It is good to practice being vulnerable in this because it allows us to be able to have conversations about things that we normally wouldn't have in what we have now. Right? One of the things I always talk about in my groups and with clients is the importance of being vulnerable. Yes. And I know for people that look like us is a completely different ballgame. So that's why, but not everybody is worthy of our vulnerability. We get to choose that. But I usually start with first, we need to allow ourselves to be vulnerable with us. Yeah. And the way I can put that for finances is, am I vulnerable enough to look at the numbers in my bank account for the last couple of months, right? And as I'm looking at those numbers, okay, now let us open up your credit card statements. So now,
wait, I have a question. When you say vulnerable enough, are you talking about looking at what you're spending as opposed to what you're bringing in? When you say vulnerable enough to look at the numbers, are you just talking about what's my balance?
No,
those are two different things.
I'm talking about vulnerable enough into the unknown.
Okay.
Right? Vulnerability is like not knowing what the outcome is going to be or what is going to be experienced, how I'm going to feel, which a lot of times people avoid. I don't know that. So that a little bit, particularly when you're talking about my mental health, you're talking about how I feel, and now you're talking about my money. Right? Because money is something very touchy and very taboo. Although we live in a capitalist society, it makes no freaking sense that people are not talking about money.
Right.
In a space of the reality of it. Right? So it's like, let us open up your bank account, and automatically there is a physical response to it. Like, I got to look at this. Yes, we're going to look at the number. Right. And then after we're looking at the number, then you're like, okay, let's go into a little bit more details. Right. And then it's like, okay, let's look at how much you spend. And I like to, with younger clients, I like to be like, let's go into your delivery, your food delivery stuff. That becomes a whole new ballgame. Because you're looking at your bank account, now we're looking into your delivery stuff, and then I'm like, let's begin to open up your credit card account, right? And what does that look like? And the emotions and the experiences and the memories that it brings up is insane. So just when we're thinking, okay, we're getting to a space where anxiety levels are low, I'm able to do this and this and this, and now we get into the money. It's like, oh, now we just opened up another realm to what we were working on. Right. So we started off working on anxiety, depression, and trauma, which was here, with the understanding that those were just symptoms. Now we bring in finances, family dynamics, right? All these other tentacles that show up. And then the finances, where you think it just stops there, no, the finances go back into family relationships. How did I grow? What did I look like? Blah, blah, blah. What was missing when I was growing up? Right. How was that handled? I was never taught to handle the emotions that show with this. We just put those things away. So there is a level of vulnerability that is required when it comes to managing finances. I know for one way that I did it is my closest friends. I remember my best friend, and I realized, so how much you make? This is what my pay stub looked like. And even being able to do that was so big. And was not, during that time, we were in our 20s. No one was really talking about that. Right. When did you ever share your pay stubs with a friend? And what prompted us was some of us lived in New Jersey, others lived in New York, and lived in, so it was like I was working in New York, living in New Jersey, and vice versa. I'm like, well, this is what my check looked like. And then I reached out to my girlfriend that lived in Florida, and I was like, how much you making? She was like, what? Let me see. And we started those type of conversations, and it completely shifted the relationships, right? So it made those relationships more rich, and made up in a space that it allowed us to be more vulnerable with one another, and it allowed us to be supportive in that realm. So when I thought about my money, this project was like, how do we allow and help people
Hmm.
feel more
Hmm.
comfortable with money, but also with the emotions that will be experienced, the discomfort that will be experienced, and how to build a tolerance level, right? The stamina to be able to manage those things.
Hmm. Hmm.
With the understanding that it's going to open up a whole other realm of experiences,
Hmm.
memories, things that are showing up in relationships that we may not have been paying attention
Right.
to, conversations with family and friends about money, about what it looks like, how do we want it to look, what is our financial
Hmm.
goals. When people are starting relationships, hopefully they do this at the beginning of relationships. Hey, what are your
Yeah.
finances and how does that look?
Important.
With a level of empathy and compassion, because we really don't know
Right.
people's experiences with it.
Right.
So, and as I was talking about that, it made me think about how many finance people are tapping into their clients' mental health
Hmm.
when it
Hmm.
comes to trying to teach them with home buying, life insurance, savings, investing. How do y'all do that? Do y'all even touch into that?
Let me tell you something. And just thank you for the. So, on the one end, I am a mortgage banker. On the other end, I'm a licensed financial advisor. And 80% of the time, what the fantasy that people make up in their head about how much money they make and how much money they save is the polar opposite of the reality. You don't know how many times where I've literally sat down with people and go, all right, how much you make, what's your income like, how much money do you have to just play with, work with. They'll tell me one number, but then I go, all right, send me these documents for confirmation. I just told a coworker of mine, never believe what they say, only believe what you see, because every single time when I tell you the number is so off. I just had a client 2 days ago. I made 157,000 last year. The W-2 said 120,000. You like that like if you said 148 to 157, I can kind of see, all right, you know, you're talking about $30,000 difference. And
Yeah.
this is why the conversation is important, because you need to have a realistic conversation with yourself, with your family, with your partner, with your friends, to actually
Yeah.
be honest with yourself. Now, maybe you can possibly make 157, but the black and white number that's on line 5 of your W-2 is the reality, and we need to be okay with the reality and not recreate a different reality that's not really truthful with ourselves. And that's where we have to come in, and that's where I come in, because oftentimes when I present the reality, there's a solemn quietness of, oh, and I don't think they really know. They know, but they don't really know, or they haven't really settled in their brain of this is the reality of my finances.
So, what action steps? Because I know for with the work that I do with my
Hmm.
clients, the same type of mental health treatment plan that we work on, this also gets included into this treatment plan, and we begin to identify what are the action steps
Right.
that they can take, practice taking, and it is as to what are you able to do in this very
Hmm.
moment, as it relates to managing the emotions and managing the thoughts that will show up.
Right.
And it does require a level of grief,
Hmm.
experiencing grief and the loss that comes with that. Because if we started off with, this is what I want this to look like, and this is what I think I am going to feel like once I'm able to either reach that number or reach that goal of what that house is supposed to look like, or reach that investment, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And now, as the conversations that we're having, how we are evolving in the mental health journey, I am working with them and shifting and changing that image to, well, this is the reality of where we're
Right.
at, and this is the practice that's going to have to take place. And there's a grief that takes place in between that space, because there's a loss. It's a loss of a dream,
Hmm.
right? It's a loss of, I thought I was going to. And that drive that was trying to get them to that drive was actually causing a lot of pain
Right.
and a lot of discomfort and a lot of unhealthy habits. So when we're working together, is my goal is to be able to get them healthy habits, healthy mind, practice, challenge, vulnerability, compassion, all those words that sound really nice, but the work that has to get done in order to accomplish them is very big. And now we're adding the finances to it that's causing even a heightened level of grief and loss.
Yes.
So it's how do we practice building stamina to manage the loss that takes place and those emotions that will present themselves with that
Mm-hmm.
as we're working on other things, then to be able to get them to the action step. So there's so many things that take place before having
Right.
them take action that it can be daunting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that space of that, you can lose a lot of hope. People can begin to feel helpless and
Right.
frustrated.
Right.
So now it's starting a new cycle, right? So one of the things before we finish, I would like for us to identify what some of the action steps that you
Mm-hmm.
recommend for somebody that it's trying to change their views on money.
Mm-hmm.
And challenging the dream or their image that they have created as to this is what I want it to be like,
Right.
versus the reality, managing that from a financial lens.
So from my lens, both being on the mortgage side and let's just say estate planning, from my point of view, the numbers are the numbers for now. What I try to focus on is where do you want to be? What's your why? Why are you doing this? And what's your plan for the future, right? What's your why for creating a college education or creating or getting life insurance, or who are you leaving it for? What's your purpose for this plan going forward? Because right now we are. The numbers are black and white. They're not going to change from today to tomorrow. But what you can do is if you're looking to buy a home, now that home is an investment for your family, for the next generation. You sell it, you give your kids the money, whatever have you. Maybe you're starting a college fund. Maybe you're doing
That's
a life insurance.
another issue.
Yeah, but on my end, I'm
Yeah.
focusing on the future, right? What's your
Yes.
why, and what's your plan moving forward? I can't really, I don't,
Yeah.
although I delve into a little bit the psychology of why they got to where they got to. My goal is to get them to where they want to be. All right. What's your estate plan? Are you protecting what you already own? Are you, do you put enough money away for retirement? And this is on my financial planning side. Do you have a life insurance policy? Are all your documents as far as just your savings and checkings accounts, are they up to snuff as far as if you die today, who are you leaving that stuff to? Right? That gives us our why. That gives us our
Do
plan.
you also give them information on trust and all that
Yes.
stuff, building trust?
Yes, I give them all
Trust
that
fund.
information. Trust funds, how to protect if we have a home and I'm elderly, how do I protect that by developing an estate plan, right? An estate
Okay.
to put the home in. These are all things that, again, for me, they all, the numbers are black and white. How are we moving forward? What's our plan? What's our why? Why are we doing this? And why are we moving forward? And that's how I have to operate, because if I get too deep in the woods of why did they get to where they got to, most often than not, they will, what's the term when you're so scared you don't want to move, you don't want to go anywhere, right?
Fight, flight, freeze, so they
Right.
get paralyzed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not what I
Do
want.
you ever refer them to mental health?
I now here's the problem.
Parker?
No, here's the problem. Because I work mainly with people of color, and you and I both know in that realm, in that cultural diaspora, mental health is, although it's getting better, there's still a level of stigmatism that goes into it. And so again, if I start to talk about that, then they start to kind of
Use them.
resist what
Yeah.
I'm doing. So I can't really go into that because I still want them to think about where our plan is, what our goal is. Now, what often happens is most of my clients, we become, although we're business associates, we become friends. You know, at some level, there's still some level of barrier there. And if I have the opportunity to now go, this is what I did. Maybe you want to think about it. I will put that in there, but I can't really go into that being at the
Got it.
and
Okay.
the level of
Yeah.
that.
Got it. Okay. For me, it becomes more of the action steps that
Hmm.
that I assist clients on taking when it comes to this is literally, yes, we go into what is the reality
Hmm.
and then what are their emotions connected to it,
Right.
right? So it's what are the emotions that are connected to it? And I usually start as like, what are you feeling? How does this feel in your body? What part of your body is talking the loudest?
Hmm.
And then it's like, okay, does that have any emotions? What is the language for the emotions? And then, okay, what are the thoughts? What are the images that are showing up? Right? It allows them to be able to slow down. And usually we're doing this as they're slowing down their breathing.
Hmm.
And by that, it allows their brain to slow down and then we can think clearer. And as we're able to start doing that, when we start practicing that during the sessions, then it's like, now I need you to practice doing this on your own.
Right.
So it's still very black and white initially, because that's where we start from.
Hmm.
And then I get into the mud
Right.
with them. And like, okay, there's going to be some muddy waters, and this is how we begin to clean ourselves off from this, blah, 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 blah. And these are the steps that we're able to take. So, it has allowed me to step into different aspects of mental health that I did not know 10 years ago, 20 years ago that I was going to be getting into with clients. And it's opening up my creativeness and curiosity, which is why I wanted us to do this project. I am a true believer of being able to share as much information as possible and as accurate as possible based on how we're continuing to learn. So the more I learn, the more I share, right? And that gives me a level of satisfaction, and with the hope that people are able to share it with others. Now, we have scheduled to do more webinars, and these webinars all each have a different topic. And our next webinar is going to be on generational wealth, and that's going to be like a more intimate setting through Zoom, and I'm going to share with my clients. Hopefully you share it with your clients to be able to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that show up. And this is like one of these passion projects, right, that we're doing.
It's scary.
That feed us. What happened?
I said that generational piece is going to be scary.
Well, yes, because we are challenging what ancestors are guiding us into, right?
Yes.
And how do we challenge the people that are not here? When we're trying to focus on the people that are here, like you and I, right? And what it looks like now. And how does that look like for people that look like us? Actually, what does that look like for people that look like us?
Yeah. It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting because I was watching something where a guy was saying that a tree has to grow in two different directions at the same time. And essentially, you're going to be delving into the ancestor part, the roots of the problem, and I need to delve into the growth and how we have to continue to grow. And oftentimes, when you stretch people like a rubber band, it gets dicey.
So in that growth process, we will assist in how people can cope during that stage. Those will be the growing.
That's our goal, because they're definitely going to be growing pains, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be exciting.
Okay, then. Do we ask for questions, or people are able to just?
So people, I see someone did say good afternoon.
Hi.
I don't know if they're still around, but yeah, if you have questions, please, leave them we're going to post this video. So leave them in the comments, or if you want to be more intimate and have a specific question for myself or Taylor for Change, Miss Nancy, just shoot us a message and we'll definitely check. We definitely will check our messages daily and get back to you and, kind of delve deep
Yeah.
into questions. Yeah.
And for the future webinars, they can register at
Yes.
mymindmymoney.com. Yeah.
Yes. And like we said,
They
this,
have this, the webinars are listed there.
mhm,
You get to register for whichever ones you want to participate in, and they're free, and you can share them with as many people as you want. Because our goal is to be able to have people start having these type of conversations from a more vulnerable space with empathy, compassion, awareness,
mhm,
right, and a feeling of empowerment.
yes. And like we said, this one will be on IG, but moving
This one
forward,
is on you.
yeah, we're gonna transfer over. So definitely check us out and give them the website again, Nancy,
It's
and
mymindmymoney.com.
right, and everything, all the information as far as days and time. We're gonna
Yeah,
keep the same time, but the
yeah.
days moving forward, the dates are there, and we're looking forward to assisting and growing and helping, and that's what we're doing this for.
Looking forward to this journey then. Have a good one.
Enjoy, people.
Bye. So I just log out.